I'd like to welcome you all to our small business webinar series. Today's webinar is done in partnership with Grow with Google, a training resource arm of Google that is really designed to help you grow your skills, career, and business. And the topic today is critical. It's one we get so many questions about: how to coach your team to success. I'm Molly Heffernan, Director of Marketing for the Tory Burch Foundation, and it is, as always, a pleasure to be here with you all. I am so thrilled to introduce Anastasia Kudrez from the Grow with Google team, lead educator for the Grow with Google program, and has been speaking with Google and doing work like this since 2005, appearing at hundreds of events on Google's behalf, training thousands of people around the world on critical topics, has developed online marketing curriculum for major education providers, clients like Harvard Business School Executive Education, eMarketer.com, Cannondale, Air Jamaica, the National Federation of Independent Businesses. I mean, this is an incredible resume, and I just know we are in such good hands today. So we are absolutely thrilled to have you here, Anastasia. You're going to help us build skills as managers, maximize our team's performance and development, and really get into it with us. And afterwards, everyone will have plenty of time for Q&A. So please use the Q&A box to ask your questions and use the chat to stay connected with the community. Today's session will be recorded, so please watch your inboxes for a replay link afterwards. And I guess with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so very much, Molly. I am going to take a minute and share my screen, so hang on one sec. Can you guys all see the slides that says coach your team to success?
Looks good.
All right, fantastic. So hi everybody, I'm Anastasia, and I'm still in that lovely work from home life, and my beloved dogs, who have been silent for 4 hours, have now said, they're like, oh, mom is teaching a webinar, so we're going to bark. But they'll be quiet in about 1 minute before we get into the session. So guys, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics that we have in our sessions. It's called Coach Your Team to Success. And I'll start by asking, how many of you out there, and you can chat it in there, are managers of people? Yes, I see lots and lots of managers out there. And honestly, I was just chatting with Molly and Desiree before the session started. And I feel like for many of us, the work itself, it might be challenging, but it's not nearly as challenging as actually managing the people that you work with. And every single one of you out there has worked with someone who is difficult, is a little more challenging to work with, especially as a team. And so today's workshop, or the point of today's workshop, is to help you as managers learn some effective strategies for, dealing with those difficult folks and really kind of hearing and growing the entire team. So like Molly said, I'm Anastasia. I am the lead educator for Grow with Google, and I'm tuning in from Nashville, Tennessee. And today's workshop is going to help you learn about the attributes of good managers and how you can best coach your team members to success to maximize their potential and performance. Over the last, I've been in the internet industry, 27 years now. It's crazy. And over that time, I've had opportunities to manage teams, both large and small, and they all have their challenges, but hopefully I can share some tips with you today. Okay, so take a step back. When you think about a startup that is failing, small business, that's sad, you might immediately assume that it's a cash flow issue, or you might think that it's a product problem or a marketing problem. But one of the things that's really interesting is that actually 65% of startups fail because of people-related issues. So what's happening is that people think about their HR processes after their product and marketing strategy. But in reality, you might want to flip that, because the people that are going to be helping you build those strategies are critically important. So even if you have the most brilliant business idea in the world, it's never going to grow. It's never going to thrive without the right team. So that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about what makes a great manager based on the attributes and the learning behaviors that has been observed. And this is based on Google's internal research. It will talk about the 10 attributes that make the best managers. Then I'm going to show you how to be a good coach for your team. I seriously feel like my other job description is coach, because I've been coaching a team of 17 trainers, showing them how to teach about Google's products and services. And the trick is figuring out when to direct somebody, when to mentor somebody, and when to actually coach somebody. And I'll talk about the differences there. And then I'll close by showing you how to provide meaningful developmental feedback for your team. And so it's really, and this is tricky because a lot of people, they hear feedback as a criticism, and it's not, or it doesn't have to be. And so you as a manager need to be able to help your team grow and improve in the work that they do, in the relationships in that office, without making it a confrontational experience for yourself or for the people that you work with. And that's what today's workshop is going to be all about. So to be the best manager and the best coach for your team, you need to understand those attributes and qualities that make great leaders. So how many, oh, we won't raise your hands, but I'll bet that some of you feel uncomfortable with the concept or the ideas of managing others, or that you believe that a talented team is just going to do it on their own naturally. But effective management comes into play here. It's actually one of the strongest reasons that an employee will stay with a company or decide to leave. So even if you're thinking of it like, well, they're doing a great job, your role as a manager will actually come into play in the retention of those valuable employees. So first thing is create an inclusive environment. Think about, are you modeling a respectful and inclusive environment? Are you encouraging everyone to show up as their true, authentic selves? And do you support your team in good times and in bad? Next, you want to think about empowering the team and resist the urge to micromanage. This is hard for me because you probably, and this has been one of the biggest challenges for me as a manager, where I have it in my head what I need done, what I want the output to look like, what I want that customer communication to say. And at some point, you have to let go. You have to let go of all of those nitty-gritty details and empower your team to make some of those decisions and to innovate on their own. Next, you want to support career decisions and discuss performance. So you want to think about, well, first of all, are you actually communicating your expectations clearly? Because if you don't put it out there, what that performance looks like, you really can't hold people accountable or expect them to live up to that standard. You have to tell them what you're looking for. And then another thing to ask about is think about the team that you work with, and how many of you know like what they want to do in this job, in their career, in their life. Do you understand their dreams? And if you can get to that information, and I'm not talking about like getting too personal, there's a fine line between a manager and a friend. But if you understand what these people eventually want to do, and then find ways to connect that to the job that they're in, the company that you work for, you'll be able to really tap out the full potential of that employee. You'll be able to help them grow and thrive in that workspace. Another thing is you want to be a good coach. And a good coach provides specific feedback. A good coach asks good questions, thoughtful questions to help your team find solutions and explore options. And the first thing you can do is just think, when's the last time I had a one-on-one meeting with all of the members of your team to talk about feedback and how they're how they're feeling in their role at the company. And if you haven't done that regularly, maybe once a week isn't realistic, but maybe once a month you set up a meeting with the people that you work with. And when you do have those meetings, you need to be a good communicator. So you want to have open dialogue. You want to be responsive and transparent. And it's not about you just talking. I love talking. It's what I do for a living. But really, it's about being a good listener and a good communicator. You also want to have a clear vision and strategy for your team. This is really important for startups. I'll bet there are lots of startups out there or people who are just kind of stepping out of that and into the next maturity level for their businesses. And this is really important because people are going to start joining you for the vision of your company or your organization. And so you want to be able to really enunciate a compelling vision and strategy that motivates and inspires your team and your potential team. And better than that, try not to make it just your vision. Try to involve your team in the creation of that vision. You want to be productive and results oriented as a manager. You want to translate that vision into tangible goals, objectives, and results. And you want to try to structure your team and allocate your resources appropriately. Also think about who's in that team. Is it diverse? Do you have different skills and perspectives and experiences? And it should be collaborative. So you want to model collaboration across all parts of your team and hold the people in your team accountable for upholding the values, whether that's team values, company values, cultural values, and think about how you as the manager are contributing to that. Another thing, and I'm pretty good at this, but maybe sometimes too good, is being a strong decision maker. You need to be able to make tough decisions efficiently in a way that's good for your company, but you also need to be able to clearly communicate that decision. And be able to support it. And last but not least, you want to have key technical skills that will help you advise your team. So basically, are you able to do the work, or do you have someone there who can do the work? Can you actually roll up your sleeves and work alongside the team? Because the team that you work with is going to run into issues, and they need to know that you as the manager are either willing to jump in there yourself and help, or give them the resources to do that. So think about all of these things, all of these attributes, and what resonates with you out there. How many of you can fulfill all of these characteristics of a good leader, a good coach, a good manager for your team? What are you doing well? And what are areas that you might be able to make some improvements? Okay, well, with that, let's go through it. Today, we're going to focus on this particular one attribute, which is focusing on being a good coach. And this is one of the areas where every single person listening to this webinar could make a significant difference in the overall success of your team members. So what does this actually mean? What does it mean to be a coach? It's a mindset. It's a way of being, of relating, of connecting. It's about unlocking your potential. And it's huge for you as a founder or a manager, because eventually, if you're a good coach, it's going to free up your time, it will empower your team, and it will essentially up-level your entire company. It's like the old adage, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. It's the same thing. Coaching is investing the time with the people on your team to help them learn how to fish. But how do you know when it's an appropriate time to coach? So as a people manager and leader, one of the most difficult things to know and to understand is how to coach. You're probably asked to do it a lot, even if they don't use that word. You have to teach, train, mentor, and you have to adjust your approach based on the people, the circumstances, the needs of your team, and their different opportunities for growth. And you, as a good, effective manager, can adjust this approach. So take a look at this chart that you see. I'm working on two screens. So if you see me looking to the left, it's just so I can see the screenshot that I'm talking about here today. So this chart shows teaching on the far end of the spectrum, right? That's where the manager shares ideas and knowledge. But on the opposite end, in the coaching side of the graph, that's where you can actually see an individual being coached with their own ideas, which results in development. So you can kind of see the difference. As a people manager and leader, there are times when you're going to have to be directive, where you're going to have to tell somebody exactly what and how to do something that's involved with the work. But sometimes you'll be on the other side of the continuum, where you'll be able to free yourself up to empower the team and maximize their potential so that they can help develop their own ideas into the work that they're doing. So coaching that we're talking about today is all the way on the right side. It's about the individual, the employee that you're working with. It's about developing, fostering, nurturing their ideas and their development rather than imparting your own experience and knowledge. It's a chance for you to step outside of your role as a manager, to take the pressure off and to simply focus on the person that you're coaching. Okay, just going to do a quick check. Molly, any questions? I just want to make sure. I haven't heard anything, which doesn't mean that there haven't been any things that I need to respond to. Looking in here.
So far, so good.
Okay, good. Yes. And I'm looking here in the comments too, where I've fallen short. I have too, y'all. Do not, every single person on this call, myself included, can work on some of these areas. Exactly. It's situational leadership. It's about, really thinking about at this moment in time, for this person that I'm working with in this project, this is where I might be able to improve my job, my role as your coach. Okay, so now that we know why coaching is important, let's talk about how you can best coach your team to maximize their performance in everyday tasks. Okay, so how do you even begin? How do you even start coaching? You don't all have to go out and become certified coaches, life coaches. You don't need to do that to succeed in this role. The idea is that you're going to be more coach-like in your approach to the workplace and to the people that you work with. And honestly, this can even apply to people in your personal life. I don't know about any of you who have children. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and let me tell you, I have pulled stuff from this presentation to be able to try to have a better relationship with my own child. So it really does apply in lots of situations. The foundations of this whole coaching is about listening and asking good questions. And this sounds so basic. It's like a very basic skill. And some of you are probably really good at this already, but we're going to delve into the different ways to show up, to truly listen and to see your team and let them know that they're being seen. And one way to do that is to ask good, open-ended questions. So it starts, good coaching, or being the ability to coach your team well, actually starts with good listening. So many of you probably already know what it means to be an active listener. It's to tilt your body towards the person that you're talking to make eye contact. But did you know that there are different levels of listening? This was really interesting to me, that can indicate the focus or where your focus is on the conversation. So level one listening, or as we'll describe it, is really kind of internal listening. You've all done it, and you've all been on the receiving end of this listening. It's when someone is talking to you and you're nodding, you're saying, yep, of course. But in your head, you're like thinking about, well, shoot, I have another meeting right after the Tory Burch Foundation webinar that I have to write this whole list of stuff for. It's remembering, oh my gosh, my schnauzer is going to bark because I forgot to lock her up before this webinar. And please, please, universe, don't let her bark again as I teach this webinar. It's about thinking all of these other things. It's this passive attention where you're stuck in your own head, but you're actually disengaged from the people, the person that you're with. So level two is factual and focused listening. So it might be where, we're talking and we are having a business meeting and we're working out a new sales process and they're listening. Maybe you all are listening to me and you're engaged in participating, but the focus is on the facts and the words and the objects and the things that are at hand. Now, level three is whole body listening, and it's focusing on bringing empathy to the conversation. For example, I know how hard it is to be interested in someone talking to you on a computer screen for a whole hour. That's rough. The temptation to take a quick note or to text somebody back or to check your email, I understand, but it's just human nature. But if you can step back, if you can really pull in and just get involved and really focus in and listen, whether you're talking to somebody, listening to somebody, it's going to make a huge difference. It's about suspending your own agenda, your own judgment, and just focusing on that person at hand. When you're listening to your team, levels 2 and 3 are where you want to be as a good coach. Now, of course, we are all human beings. We're all going to slip into level 1. Yep, sure, thanks. And you all of us get lost in our own heads. But the more you can try to focus your attention back to the human being right in front of you, or the web monitor where I know you're out there, I know you're listening, but I can't see you. But in my head, I know that they're real humans listening to me talk right now. If I can focus on you and what you need from me as a coach in this moment in time, it will really help you feel heard. It will help me better communicate with you as a coach and a manager. And it's a powerful tool in teaching. So another good step for good coaching is about asking, it starts with already listening, but it's also about asking the right types of questions. So good questions. When you're coaching, you don't need to actually know the answer to the question. So first, get that out of, just put that out of your mind. You don't have to know the answers. You just get to sit back and ask open-ended questions. So in some ways, it's kind of easy. You don't even need to know what they're going to say. Now, you want to avoid yes and no questions, because those types of questions don't really allow for greater discovery and learning from the person that you're speaking with. A great tip is that when you're in a coaching conversation or you're trying to coach an employee, ask yourself first, am I asking this for my own information gathering about the topic, or am I asking it to, really get that person to start thinking about what it is they're, or kind of processing that information? You want to get them to try to think about having an exploration of that idea. So this is going to help you kind of take a step back and let them start to talk it out. The who, when, why, what, where questions are useful, but they're usually more informative and factual based. You want to steer clear from those and go into like them really talking and thinking about that topic at hand. Also, one other thing, the why questions, be careful of those. So why are you doing this? Why is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. You probably want to steer away from why questions, because it can automatically put somebody in a defensive place. So one way to say is, how come this seems to be happening? But again, it's about tone, it's about delivery, but the word why can be a trigger. Okay, so here's a good acronym for everybody for you to use. It is WAIT. Why am I talking? Of course, asking powerful questions, asking powerful questions is important, but you as the coach should really only be talking 20% of the time at the most. And so again, think about what your role is here. You are asking simple, open-ended questions. And then once you ask your questions, step back and then be silent. Silence is okay. Now, if there is silence, sometimes it means that you've asked a thought-provoking question and you don't need to fill it. You don't need to qualify your questions. You don't need to elaborate. You don't need to provide input. You just need to ask yourself before you speak, before you ask the question, why am I talking? And you might want to ask, well, okay, great, Stasia, you've told me to avoid the who, what, when, where, why, and you've told me to ask myself to wait, but where does, what kind of questions am I supposed to ask in this situation? What is it? How do I start this conversation? So you can start talking about, well, what's happening right now? And think very simply, like, so what's going on at work? What's about establishing the current state of the job, the role, the situation, the project that you're working on. So what you want to do is really focus on the present and the future. You don't really necessarily need to focus on past. It's about bringing them to thinking about what's happening right now and then how that might flow into what's going to happen next. Then you're going to talk about, or what you could talk about is what is important. And so you're going to try to get an understanding on what's important to them, where they want to go in this job, what they want to do, what their ideal future is, where they see this project, this job going. And then you can ask them, or start to try to get them to talk about, well, how do they want to get there? How do they want to lay the groundwork to understand what steps they would need to take to move towards that ideal future state? Maybe someone says, eventually I would love to be a manager of this product group at this company. That's great. And, maybe they're an intern right now, and eventually they want to become a full-time manager. So what would they need to do? What steps might they take to get there? And again, you don't really need to advise them. You don't need to tell them, well, you need to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can just give them that space to kind of talk it out and start figuring out what some of those steps might be. So good coaching is based on the foundational belief that people are naturally creative and resourceful. And it sounds a little woo, but what it really means is that every person that you're working with and coaching already has a lot of solutions and ideas inside of them already. And when you're coaching, your job is merely to help them uncover those solutions. So another great model that we can use is the GROW model. And this helps you work through some basic coaching frameworks when you're working with your team. G stands for the goal you want. The R stands for the reality of today. O stands for options for action, and W stands for will take these steps. So it's the natural evolution of a conversation about coaching. The key here is not to rush the W, the will or the action. Coaching is about discovery. You should spend about 90% of the time on the first 3 letters, GRO, and focus on the goal and the realities. It's rare for humans to explore options out loud, to vocalize their dreams, or to explore what they really want to do. And coaching is the perfect time to do this. It's a human tendency to rush towards a solution. I am totally guilty of this. I do this all the time. I'm like, how do I get to the answer right now? And I don't work through all of these steps. It's not necessarily a problem that needs to be fixed. It's not necessarily a problem that even has a fix. So what you're trying to do is free yourself from that urge and just really focus on the exploration that helps your team get there in the best way that they can, talking about it. So here are some more sample questions. I see some questions from the folks about recordings, and I believe, yes, we are going to have a recording for this. I also have a PDF handout that goes along with this workshop. I'd be happy to share it with the Tory Burch Foundation to distribute to anybody who is on the call as well. So it's going to have a lot of the sort of the takeaways, of course, from this session. But this slide has a bunch of different example questions that can help you, like, what's your goal and what's important to you and how can I help you get there, and what's on your mind and what does success look like to you and what's your outcome. So this slide really breaks down all of those types of questions, like what are your steps forward, what's a stretch assignment for you. But this will give you an idea of some of the questions that you as a coach can start off by asking when you're having these coaching sessions. Okay, so I know that Molly is going to be like, Stasia, you only have 5 more minutes to talk, so I'm going to keep going.
You got it.
I know. So no joke, I can talk for 8 hours straight because I love it. But coaching is also knowing when to stop. So let's look at a case study. The best way to simply understand how concepts work in practice is to do an example together. Okay. So let's do a quick example, everyone. You ready? So here's a manager. You have one team member who was once a high performer, and then all of a sudden it tanks. There's a total shift in performance and overall demeanor. So let's pretend we're all the owners of a coffee shop, and one of the store managers is for your store, your coffee shop, is displaying behavior that seems out of the ordinary. And so you, as the owner of the store, want to address these concerns in a formal way. So you're like, okay, I'm going to try a coaching session. So here are some things that you would do. You would try to find a quiet, informal place to have this conversation, because you don't want to put that team member on edge to begin with. You want them to feel comfortable going into this. The more comfortable they are, the more likely they are to open up about whatever's going on. And then let's look at some of the questions that you might ask. So based on the GROW model, this questioning and active listening, you might start asking questions that let you learn things like, okay, where, what do you want to do the most? And you learn that she was a graduate student with a passion for design, but then you move into the reality of the situation where even though she has aspirations of maybe designing all of the branding and social media marketing for this coffee shop, she's got an ill family member at home, and she is, taking care of her parents at home, like a lot of us in the sandwich generation are. And where that happens is that what's happening is she's late for work sometimes because she has to take them to the doctor or she has to arrange for home care. And so the stress is often bleeding into work and impacting her relationships with her coworkers and things like this. Right, that's great. So whoever, Nicole, you just checking in. How are you feeling as a person? How are you doing today? And not just saying it like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Like really asking somebody, how are you doing? And it's the way you ask that question that can make a huge difference. And, by following these steps, you as the manager can get a better sense about what is going on in the lives of the people that you work with. And then you can make adjustments that can help that person. And it's not that you're like, okay, well, she's just going to do a bad job because, she's stressed out and we're just going to have to deal with it. It's also it's on you as a manager to help figure out some solutions on what might make this situation improve. Maybe it's about shifting hours to allow more flexibility for doctor's appointments. Maybe it's about, figuring out some time that this person could work from home or shifting some responsibilities. But that conversation lays the foundation for those important changes to start happening. Now, if the conversation had never taken place, Claire might have been like, what, I just can't make this work here. I have to be in the coffee shop, but I still have to drive my parents to the doctors, and I'm just going to have to look for a work from home job. And all of that would have been based on just assumptions about the restrictions of the workplace and the manager's lack of flexibility. But you have to have these and maybe that's true. Maybe she did need to find a different job, but you wouldn't get to the bottom of that if you didn't have that conversation to begin with. So part of it, you can think of it as coaching as a way to creatively problem solve together and to really kind of humanize the relationships with the people that you work with. Now, one more thing to talk. Yes. And so again, I see a really important point from Lisa that personal questions will cross the line with many people. So you need to be very, very careful when you're asking questions and know your company policy. But to simply say to someone, how are you today? Are you doing okay? Is a great opener, and it gives them that space to share if that's appropriate in that particular organization. Now, let's talk about giving feedback. This often goes hand in hand with coaching. And hopefully I've given you some things to think about and to think about a positive way to grow and develop with employees. But okay, so I'm going to tell you something. I actually tested this with somebody. So so it's actually my administrative assistant, and I texted her before the session, and I texted her these words. I wrote, I have some feedback for you. And I just wanted to see what happened. And sure enough, I panicked this poor woman. And I was like, oh, Kim, I was like, I swear, I really don't. I'm teaching this workshop about coaching a team. And I was told that if I say I have this for you, it's going to send you into fear. And sure enough, it did. And so again, I guess tip number one is to not just text somebody, I have some feedback for you. You want to start structuring feedback as a gift, but something that you would do on a regular, consistent basis. So it doesn't feel like out of the blue, like, hey, I have some feedback for you. Because feedback does not have to be negative. You think about how you're presenting it. Think about, acknowledge what somebody's doing well. I've had mixed opinions on the sandwich, good thing, bad thing, good thing. But the important thing is, don't let people see through like, oh, she's complimenting me on the fact that I write, proper grammar, but then she hates what I write in the email. Think about you're thinking about being honest and constructive, acknowledging good performance, but being very forthright about what it is that you're talking about. I'm going to give you a framework for delivering that feedback. So here's how we would actually effectively deliver it. Again, old sayings, not what you say, how you say it. The key to this is approach. If you deliver feedback in an effective way, it's going to have a negative impact on the morale of your team. But if you put your trust in them and you have your commitment in the company, it can really help develop the people that you work with. It's the approach that matters. Now, everyone on this call is different. Every person has different company policies. Everyone has different personalities. You need to find a style that works for you, works for your organization. But we recommend starting with the situation. Exactly what did you see happening? And you want to avoid generalizations and be as specific as possible. Then you want to move to behavior, what you observed and what exactly was said. What did you observe? What happened? And then last but most importantly, the impact. So what was the impact of the behavior, the action, the words, which is the purpose of you providing this feedback? And what kind of tone? A very neutral tone. And so, for me, when I do this, I stay very factual. I stay very neutral. If I'm upset, I don't have these conversations. So if I've had an issue with something that was delivered, I always take a breath and I step back before I have these meetings, because that's not what this is about. This is figuring about, well, what is going on here, and did this person even understand that this happened, and how do we get that right, and how do we actually figure out how to solve this together, and what are the next steps? So here's a good framework: situation, behavior, and impact. So think about, let's go back to that coffee shop example. The situation is the store got busy during a rush hour. The behavior was, and this is a good situation, the behavior you observed was that the employee, who's now very happy because of her flexible hours, went above and beyond to accommodate a customer who had special needs. And the impact was the customer contacted management to express their appreciation and how supportive they felt in that store. That's great. That's really good. But then you could also have the negative side of that, where, okay, the coffee shop was really busy. The behavior was that the employee didn't clean up the spilled coffee all over the floor, even though this was an important protocol. And the impact was that it put customers and staff at risk, or worse, somebody fell and slipped. And so all of this, good or bad, is meant to be developmental and constructive feedback. Okay, so let's wrap this up. In summary, get in the mindset for giving feedback. It's always positive, even if you're talking about a negative situation, because it shows that you as a manager care about their success. You're meeting with them because you want to give them the tools, the information, the feedback that will help them succeed in the role that they're in. Try using the steps. The preparation is key, and be yourself, be authentic, and be honest. Don't, put on, I am not a hugger. Just never been. So, and so for me, I'm not going to just go up and hug somebody, which is also probably not allowed in many corporate workplaces, but that's not me. So I'm not going to try to be somebody that I'm not. I'm just going to be authentic to myself. I'm also going to try to adapt the conversation to that person's style. You think about the person that you're working with. And again, you want to share positive and motivational feedback. And then your developmental. So think of that 5-to-1 ratio. And this model can help you coach your team to success. But the most important thing is to be consistent, timely, and to give actionable feedback on a consistent basis to your team. And it's not something that you should do once every 6 months, once a year, or at your performance reviews. It needs to be something that happens all the time, so you don't strike that "I have some feedback for you" fear in the people that you work with. All right, let's recap, and then I'll turn it back to Molly. We learned about the attributes of a good people manager today. Create an inclusive environment, empower your team, don't micromanage, support career development, discuss performance, and the big focus, be a good coach, be a good communicator, have a clear vision and strategy for the team, be productive and results-oriented, collaborate, be a strong decision maker, and have the key technical skills that are needed to actually advise the team. And so remember, you're going to use that model GROW: goal, reality, options, and will. And the SBI formula: situation, behavior, and impact formula. All right, just a few resources from Google to show you if you enjoy our lessons. Check out our Grow with Google YouTube channel at youtube.com/growwithgoogle. We provide new videos that cover topics about skills and careers and businesses. And if you're looking to start a new career or land a competitively paid job, we also have Google Career Certificates. Now, I know we have a lot of businesses out there. Did you know that each of you, small businesses, are eligible up to 500 scholarships each for your employees? The scholarships are worth up to $100,000 in workforce training. Here's the fine print. U.S. businesses are eligible to receive up to 500 scholarships on Coursera. The offer is valid through December 18th, 2024. Eligibility and number of licenses is subject to the application, business verification, and approval by Coursera. And you can apply to this for free at grow.google/certificates for business. I'll repeat that, grow.google/certificates for business. And they've got some cool courses. They've got project management, which is not just for IT, it's for any project, IT support, user experience design, UX, data analytics, and digital marketing and e-commerce. So if you haven't done that, I would check it out. And you can visit our website at google.com/grow to find more information for job seekers, teachers, small business owners, startups, and developers. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I am going to turn it back to Molly. I hope I left some time for, okay. Thank you, everybody. I am going to turn it back to Molly. I hope I left some time for questions. I tried to stay in the
We have plenty of time, but we do have a lot of questions. So Stasia, I'm going to dive right in. And I'm going to start with a question that came in when folks were registering. And I think it's pretty big picture here. So most folks tuning in today are founders, and so inherently incredibly passionate about what they've started and their mission. How do you motivate a team to have as much passion and drive as you do? And is that a fair expectation?
Wow, that's a really good question. We all should get together for a cup of coffee, because that's, and as the founder of my organization, I can only speak from my own experience here, because I feel like there's not a right or wrong answer. According to the internet, this is it. I feel like every day, and it takes a lot of energy, I just bring it. And every day that I can bring my passion and my energy and my enthusiasm, it's infectious. And if you really mean it, and if you really get in there, it sounds so cliche. It's catchy. It really is. At the same time, you don't need to know everything about my life, but I do this and I love this. This is my work passion. I also have a nonprofit passion that I work with. And and it's the same thing where I am up until 1 a.m. working on stuff. And I'm why isn't everybody up working on this with me? Because it's so exciting. But I also need to take a step back and be okay, I have to give people the space to have their own lives. Yes, Frothy Monkey is awesome. Whoever you are, it's Amy. I love Frothy Monkey. So I feel like you have to be present. You just can't expect everybody to develop that enthusiasm without some sort of, not micromanaging, but some involvement, some support of that, some affirmation that the work that they're doing, the ideas that they have are being heard and being executed and having a positive impact, whether that's on the product that you're developing, the marketing campaigns that you're developing, or in my case, the work of this nonprofit that we're putting out. So I think my best advice is just be there and show that excitement and help everybody be a part of it, and it will work. Does anybody have any other ideas? I'm just me, and we're all entrepreneurs and businesses out there.
Yeah, drop your ideas in the chat. I do want to jump to another question that I think will help also differentiate around the coaching versus task management. And this came in from, so here we go. As a leader, how do we really distinguish between when ongoing coaching is needed for someone who makes mistakes on the delegated tasks versus the kind of coaching that we're talking about today? Like, what is the difference? And how do you know which type of coaching or management you need to be bringing to the table?
So I think the first thing is to make the coaching part a regular part of the practice. It should not be a reaction to something that happened negative in the workplace. Ideally, in your perfect situation, you'd already be having these regular one-on-ones, particularly with people who are managing or managing roles or teams within your company, so that it's not like, oh, I have some feedback for you. It's like, okay, we have our one-on-one, and this is one of the agenda items on the topic. So that will help. So it's not like, they're like, oh shoot, I messed that project up, I know what's coming, that kind of situation. At the same time, my approach with my employees is that I don't put it off. If there's an issue, without confrontation, without any of the anger, emotion, like I just follow that SBI situation, and I'm like, okay, this is what happened last week. How do we, do we know what happened here? How do we get here? How can we address this so it, doesn't happen again? How do we clean it up? Anything that happens based on that particular situation. But I think the best advice is kind of like the root of this coaching is you want to try to get this into a regular part. And whether it's like a formal, like we will have a one-on-one session every week at 4 p.m. versus you as a manager making an explicit point for once a week to sit down and have lunch with your employees and do this informally and figure out where you may need to dig deeper. That's up to you and your workplace culture. But again, I think it's that regular interaction that's going to help avoid those issues.
Certainly. And I guess if, yes, our North Star certainly is this coaching always, but for folks who are maybe entering these conversations and they do have to give a critical piece of feedback, how do you suggest navigating when somebody is shutting down and not in a place to receive that feedback?
So a lot of it's going to be, again, they say in how you deliver it, where you deliver it. So again, you want to be, and again, this is the fine line. Managing people is really hard. I would like to tell you that I have done a perfect job with this every time I've done it, and I've not. I honestly, when I first started in my late 20s, I was a terrible manager. I was not good at this, and I would get frustrated and just assume, be like, okay, this person isn't going to work out, and then I can't talk to them and I can't get on. I think that as I've gotten older and had more practice doing it, it's really about kind of understanding and taking the time to learn to understand who it is that I'm working with and how they might be most receptive to that feedback. The other thing is that I also know that there are some people that no matter how I approach it, the feedback is going to feel bad and confrontational. And that's the hard part about being a manager. Sometimes I don't think there are situations where you just can't get around it, where any kind of feedback will be perceived as a criticism, even if it's not even necessarily bad, if it's just truly constructive. That's what I think. And managing people is a hard job. It is not for the faint of heart. So I also feel for you out there that have to give that negative feedback. That's no fun. But that's, for us, that's our work. But I think, remembering that it's not personal. It is not confrontational. It is not, it is truly about the best interests of the team, the person you're working with, the company, the goal, the project that you're working for. And if you can't figure out a way to work together, like that second slide, 65% of startups fail because of people issues. And that's the work, is figuring out what it is that you need to do. There's another local company here in town. It's a woman CEO, she rocks. And she has like a smoothie company. And one of the things that she does is for all of her new employees, she has them take the Enneagram test. And I'm not promoting that as a technique, but I'm just saying that whatever works for you, what for that particular CEO, it helps her understand her employees, and then from her perspective, do a better job coaching. So whatever it is that will help you figure out how to best communicate with them, go for it. As long as it's within company policy, the more information you have about the people you're working with, the more effective you'll be as a manager.
It's such great advice. And again, I think everyone on here, we want to avoid being part of that stat that you shared to start. So
Yeah.
I think another great question that came in and is really, this person had a personal experience of a 20+ year career not having a manager that would coach them. So really, how can we, as either people looking for jobs somewhere and meeting hiring managers during interviews, understand if we're potentially working, or taking a job with somebody who will make a good coach? Or conversely, if we're founders hiring people to be managers on our team, how do we make sure we're hiring people that value coaching?
Right. I think a lot of it is going to be taking that time in the interview process and having them talk to the other people and the team members. I know that several of the companies that I work with, and it's a pain in the butt, honestly, but for the interview process, the prospective employee needs to meet with every member of that team, which seems like a lot of steps. But if you are at a critical stage in your company's growth where it can make or break your company, hiring that one person, you probably just need to take that time in to make sure that that person is a good fit. Another one of my colleagues is just starting, and the way her company is handling it, it's a provisional contract basis where they're going to work with her for 3 months, see how that fit feels for her and for the company as a whole. And then, I mean, she's hoping that it leads into a full-time offer, but it has not yet. They're still kind of getting to know each other. So if you can give yourself that out, or give yourself a chance to work with that person in advance without really making that commitment right off the bat, that's another helpful thing. Another thing, is actually calling. For me, it's like calling their references and really talking to them, and not being like, do you recommend Molly? Yes, Molly is great. It's like having a thoughtful question, a bit like, hey, this is a typical situation that somebody might, in this role, might find themselves in. How do you think Molly would handle that? Or do you think Molly would do well here? Would this play to Molly's strengths? And you're not trying to be like, is Molly a good person or not? Should I hire? It's more like, hey, how do you think, based on your interaction with this person, they would handle this situation? And then you have to know yourself, you have to know your team, and how that person would potentially fit. But people are hard. People are unpredictable. It's like managing is the hardest part of this job. There's just no way around it.
I love what you said, though, about asking questions through the interview process, very similar to asking the right questions as you coach, right? Yeah. So
let me flip that. I didn't answer the question. What about the person who's looking for the role, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is sort of the trap where everyone thinks like, please, please, please hire me. Can I have this job? But truly, when you are interviewing for a job, you should be interviewing the employer as well, because you don't want to get stuck in a job. And that's like, so, hey, Molly, I'd like a job with you. Would you be a good coach? Like, that's not, Molly be like, I don't know. What do you mean? Like, it'd be more like, hey, if I was in this situation, like, how would the company handle it? So really think about the situations where you know what you're looking for, and then ask those questions like, hey, how does so-and-so company deal with these types of situations? What kind of support do you give your managers or your staff? And that'll give you a sense of what you're getting into. Is it going to be the full truth until you actually get in there? No. I mean, you have to actually do it. But you can ask some questions to at least get an idea if they have even thought about this stuff before.
Certainly. So a lot of folks, we're still, of course, as you mentioned at the top, doing a lot of this remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any secrets?
Here I am.
Here, same. My dog's over here.
Please don't bark. Please don't bark.
Are there any tricks of the trade for the coaching being done virtually? Better ways to signal a lot of those listening skills? Like, do you have any hacks for the group?
I mean, okay, I can tell you places where I've screwed up. and that you can quit it. Like so before this webinar, I closed every other window. I don't even know where my cell phone is. My cell phone is in another room in the house, because I know that I can guarantee you that I've had at least 4 texts that were sort of urgent, but you know what? I can't take them right now. And the managers, this is where like the micromanager instinct in me is like, oh, I need to go help right now, but I'm busy with this webinar. Like, I have great people. I'm really lucky enough. I have a great team, and they can handle anything. And one thing that does happen all the time is that a lot of times you, as the owner, as the founder, people are going to come to you and ask you first, because they know that they could get the answer from you quickly and definitively. But if you actually take a step back, I do this all the time, and I'm like, I'm just not going to answer that ping. I'm not going to answer that email. And I give them 20 minutes, an hour. I will tell you 90% of the time they figure it out. And that empowered them. It gave them the chance to be like, oh man, Stasia, it's just not responding. I need to figure out how to do this. And it totally works.
Yeah.
So, that's another thing, is like kind of like cautiously ignore them.
Right.
In a way that gives them that sort of oomph to actually figure it out on their own. And it actually, for me, it really does work. So.
That's great advice. And I think the beauty of being remote is that we have that ability. You know, someone can't come up right behind your desk and make to quote one of our other webinar speakers, their urgency, your emergency.
Yes.
Yes. So another question came in, and it's really about, how do I motivate my employees when I myself am worried about, in this person's case, the economic climate or challenges at the company. It could be any other number of things we worry about as founders. But how do you kind of hold your worry and still motivate?
That's hard. I try to keep it separate. I know I never lie to my employees. I don't tell them that everything is like puppies and rainbows, and I at the same time, I'm careful never to be alarmist. So sure, we all have things that we worry about, the concerns there. I have lost plenty of nights of sleep in the last few years. Yeah. I try to have my own network of, whether that's other business owners, other women business owners that I have who are in similar situations. And that's my group that I go to. And so, find your peers who are sharing these concerns, and that's the space to talk about this. Your employees and your colleagues, again, you're not lying to them, but they don't need to hear about your panic about making payroll. That's not good for anybody. So you find your network, find your support group, and don't make that your employees. Probably not even your managers. Maybe a little bit more with your managers, so they can be prepared to support you, or understand like, hey, maybe we shouldn't like take everybody out for that really expensive lunch today, or whatever else is going on, or maybe we do need to cut back our ad campaigns or whatever it is just a little bit this month or this quarter. But at the same time, yeah, I feel all of you out there. Like I share this with you. It's tough.
Yeah. But find your community. It's so
find
true.
Your community.
Well, I'm very sensitive to your time, and you've been so generous with us today. If there is one more question I'd like to sneak in, but only if you are able to.
Sure.
Okay. So someone here really asked about, when you have an employee or employees that are so positive sort of to your face, but what is that they're maybe disruptive or negative when you're not around, and it's creating kind of a toxic.
Oh yeah, we all have those, don't we?
What do you do?
What do you do for that person? Wow, I'm gonna throw it back on y'all. What do you all do for that toxic workplace person? I mean, for me, again, managing I think is the hardest job in the world. If it was the case where and it's depended on the situation, where if it was somebody who I knew that it was actually, several people had come to me, I might actually just flat out talk to that person. Be like, hey, I've heard that some people have, that you've been expressing concerns at some of these meetings with different people, preferably if it's a group meeting where it's not like, oh, I know it came from Molly because Molly's the person to talk with. I don't want to identify, but like, this has gotten back to me, and I just wanted to talk to you about it because like these are something's on your mind, and I approach it from a point of empathy, where I'm like, oh, I'm really sad that you are worried about this. You're concerned about this. Like, what do you want to talk about it? So one approach is to not make them the bad guy, but just be like, oh, I am so sorry. Like, have you ever had that person who's made that comment and it's so witchy? It's like, what is wrong with you? That was the meanest thing you could possibly say, or that was so rude. And instead of calling me like, wow, that was a total witchy comment, I'm like, I usually I'm like, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? Like really positioning it like you couldn't possibly be that mean. There has to be something wrong in your life that would make you say that. And I don't even mean that like with inauthentically, but that's how I, I'm like, okay, like I'm just me, and I'm telling you, like I'm doing my very best to stay positive and work with me. And
yeah, finding out what's driving that negativity, because they could be frustrated with something.
Some people are just genuinely negative. That's a drag, and I don't really know how to change that other than, if there are performance issues and you document everything, eventually, I'm not saying you should let that person go, but sometimes people just aren't a fit for the culture of your company and your team. And so depending on the, how extreme the disruptions are becoming, if you find ways to document and then follow those official processes to get it out. But again, this would always be something where I would have a conversation with that person, be like, this is what's happening, this is what I'm observing, and this is not okay. So how do we fix this together? So having those regular coaching conversations is a good start.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stasia, this is absolutely wonderful advice. I feel like there's so much that everyone tuning in, our team included, I was taking so many notes, like it's just so much that we can all learn and constantly work on. And I just love everything you've said from a place of empathetic leadership. So thank you for being so generous with your time with us today.